Right. So now what happens is this. I have now to tell you. Okay. So Shakespeare's secret language. All right. Now, as you can see, Shakespeare's sexual language is very well established. Okay. Why do I call it now? So my own, therefore, contribution or discovery will be Shakespeare's secret language. To sum it up, I'm arguing that everything you and the Royal Shakespeare Company and the British theatre directors, Trevor Nunn and so on, everything they think they understand from Shakespeare is there, true. They are not wrong. What they haven't understood, I will show you more of it, is this, that Shakespeare's, therefore, secret language, which is below the surface of his surface meaning, is something which Shakespeare seems to be wanting you both to understand and not understand. It seems that Shakespeare is hoping that you will understand. He will be totally delighted if you don't. Because if you do, what he is saying is extremely disturbing, very, very shocking. I will not elaborate. I mean, unless you ask me questions later on, I will try to satisfy you. But to sum it up in a sense, Shakespeare is saying that, I mean, there was a very tight few years period in Western civilization. I don't know why they call it civilization. Roman times, yeah? The Roman Empire was the first institutionalized genocidal state of Western culture. The Romans perpetrated genocide right, left, center, everywhere. So what happened is, I mean, it is a barbarous culture. And the last days of the Roman Empire, say 5 or 10 years before it collapsed, in Rome, this is not the whole of empire, in Rome people went absolutely berserk. It was complete, you call it freedom, I don't know. But I mean, we ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, I hope that in spite of all our Channel 4 dumbed down television programs where everybody exposes everything, I hope this is still more virtuous than the last days of the Roman Empire. So in the last days of the Roman Empire, literally everything went. You could do anything, sleep with your mother, brother, children, cut the neighbor's throats, deface his nose, I mean, do what you like, everything was okay. So now Shakespeare has this unfortunate model, and in his secret language, through his secret language, he seems to be either reflecting it, expressing it, or I fear that, if misunderstood, can be also advocating it. So in other words, and of course his models were Seneca. Seneca wrote in the last days of the Roman Empire, and he's absolutely violent and everything else, and of course it was Shakespeare's great model and so on. I won't elaborate these points. I can if you want me to later on. But, so going back to therefore, so I'm not going to bring Shakespeare's secret language into its ultimate messages and conclusions. There are coded messages there which are extremely disturbing, and you have seen nothing yet, okay? However, I will only show you something else, which is that Shakespeare's, it seems, if one wants to philosophize about it, Shakespeare seems to be saying this. The Renaissance, one of the great Renaissance obsessions after the medieval period of, starry heavens, gods, angels, all that, yeah? Renaissance took, that was the great cultural shift. It got man-obsessed this time. In other words, the Renaissance was the period when intellectuals, artists, creative artists, and so on, society started exploring the humankind. It has a tie-up with medieval times in another way. But Shakespeare, therefore, is exploring man. not only therefore defining the human nature. There's a recent American book saying that, never mind, but he's entirely wrong, because then people go funny in two things, in their sexual practices and about Shakespeare. Everybody goes funny about Shakespeare. I mean, they say the most amazing things. I mean, this great professor of Yale University, probably somebody can tell me his name, it doesn't matter. Yes. He thinks that Shakespeare created human nature. It's absolute nonsense because he doesn't obviously know Greek drama. In fact, if anything at all, Shakespeare based on Greek drama and so on. I cannot believe that this man writes a massive tome like that, and he says such ludicrous, such childish, superficial, forgive me, bullshitting. I mean, what else can I say? I mean, it makes sometimes very angry. So, therefore, Shakespeare did not create human nature, explored it. What he's doing is this. All the meanings you get of Shakespeare in terms of the human body is what you see. Then the puns and the hidden meanings is the parallel of the insides of the body, the heart, the liver, whatever, how the body works. And Shakespeare's secret language, which is exclusively sexual, is like the human body, the sexual organs hidden. This is why Shakespeare's secret language is hidden as a reflection of the fact of the sexual organs being hidden. And there is a long story, enormous esoteric problem here, which one can elaborate. Now, what I'm going to show you is this, which is again world-shaking. To show you, therefore, why I personally do not think that Shakespeare is a dirty old man, as Tolstoy thought, is because of this massive depth, metaphysical depth and esoteric depth, etc., etc. And enormous, I mean, this man is amazing. I mean, enormous courage of it. I mean, this is what I'm trying to tell you. If Shakespeare's secret language would have been understood, he would have definitely lost his head. He would have, the head would have been cut off by the government, by the British establishment. I mean, all you British mates who think that your royalty is less than holy, forget that in fact murder, crime, is the specialty of the British establishment and royalty, with Henry VIII cutting heads off of women. I mean, you have all these wonderful books who talk about utopias. Thomas More tried to sort of imagine utopias and so on. And there's all these magnificent Christian dogma. Henry VIII's confessor has a book where he says how, you know, of course, the idea that the king is God's deputy on earth, is the ruler and so on, and yet you compare with the practice of the British kings, then they seem to have the mastery of murder and crime and total corruption. Henry VIII not only cutting heads off, then you have Elizabeth. I mean, there's a decree by Elizabeth, signed and sealed by her, undoubtedly, probably even dictated by her, I mean, which even today, I think that, frankly, the British government, like the Pope had the courage to do it, the British government must make an A-list, apology list, and apologize for these crimes against humanity. And this is it. Elizabeth, of course, persecuted the Catholics. Yeah, she was beginning of Protestantism and so on. The Catholics were referred to as recusants. I don't know how you pronounce it. So, recusants, and it is very likely that Shakespeare's father was a recusant. Shakespeare's friends, some of them were. So, what was the punishment for the recusant? I must tell you this because it freaks me out. I can't. Well, anyway, you see, the decree says it is hanging, but how? It must be. It is hanging not to death, but to quartering. I'll tell you how it is written as a law in this way. A man, the recusant, for God's sake, this is for religion, yeah, is hung with a noose, yeah. Just before he breathes the last, they cut the noose off. So he falls down. They amputate his sexual organs. In other words, they castrate him. They pull the guts out of the bowels and put fire to it. I mean, the guy is still alive. His organs are amputated, his guts are out, being burnt, and then they start quartering him, pulling from the limb to limb, from limb. And this was done at Tyburn, the old present-day Marble Arch, for a kind of public entertainment. This is your great Queen Elizabeth I. And then, of course, you had James I, the Scottish king. He, he was, of course, a pedophile, and his court was so, I don't want to waste time giving you the quote. His court was so corrupt that, and this is following Elizabeth, his court was so corrupt, his greatest joy was to, and this is James I, his greatest joy was to defecate while on horseback, in his trousers, in his breeches. I mean, this is your royalty, compared to which Prince Charles is a true saint. So, I mean, I will now, as a final point before your question, will show you, therefore, in this tremendous awfulness. Now, of course, this sexual, so remember, to understand, say, Elizabethan sexuality, it was, everybody was at it, not because they needed sex. Sex was a great unknown. People had sex just like animals, as a kind of functional necessity. It wasn't sex for fun or procreation. Yeah, remember, we didn't have electricity. It was all dark, it was all rotten. You grab anyone and any time, and people didn't even know where to enter and whether it entered and in what place it entered. And they had even sex in Westminster Hall, which is now part of the House of Commons. Westminster Hall was... Thank you. The British tradition. So remember, therefore, this is also why Shakespeare's ambiguous sexuality is this, because it is anytime, anywhere, all the time, and you don't know where it goes, etc. However, here is where Shakespeare's greatness, amazing, this is one example, and this is now the highest, noblest, deepest, whatever you want to call, okay, the word soul. Okay, if you're tired, screw your patiences without puns intended, because this is very important. I don't know if to tell you another funny story, but probably I won't. All right, so now, already Partridge has a notion of it. This guy, Martin Green, absolutely is his discovery. But remember, it is in the Oxford English Dictionary. All he's done is really look up the old English dictionary, in which soul has endless spellings, meanings, and his genius is that he has suddenly hit on the understanding that this is what Shakespeare intends. And the only way I can tell you is Richard II. Martin Green gives other examples. He doesn't give this one. This is my own example. Richard II says in the prison, "Let my mind play the female to my soul." And this is hilarious because it's frequently quoted as great poetry. And you can imagine John Gilbert saying, "Let my mind play the female to my soul." Yeah, great poetry and so on. I mean, what does it mean? I mean, it's absolute nonsense if you don't understand what the guy is saying. I mean, yeah, this is ridiculous. Even if you didn't understand the secret language which I'm revealing it to you, obviously, what? My mind be the female to my soul. Obviously, let her play the role of the female. Number one, remember the Elizabethan boy actors who are playing a role. Okay? Therefore, they are playing the role of female. And finally, this is a big, great revelation. There is a soul differently spelt, but pronounced exactly the same. And there's a whole series of it. Soul, 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 S-O-L-E, the shoe soul, etc. All this is pronounced the same. One of these souls means the very phallic post from which then a hedge is made. So in other words, I'm sure if you have a Victorian house, which I used to have in olden times, I had a fantastic soul in my garden. It is just this is it. The post, and then you have a hedge, the wooden fence. Okay? Now, undoubtedly, therefore, the soul is the phallus. And Shakespeare, now, here's the point which I'm going to tell you. This guy, whose discovery this is, okay, thinks that it is only sometimes, and he tries to show his genius by trying to pick on those times, that Shakespeare has that meaning. What he hasn't understood, what I am saying, and this is now my discovery, is that soul in Shakespeare, all the time, without exception, infinitely used, always means the phallus. So when, therefore, what is incredible, if you understand, therefore, Shakespeare, you see, this is where Shakespeare, it's hilarious, there's a Polish sort of intellectual who once wrote, I mean, he didn't know English. I don't know how he could allow himself to write a book on Shakespeare called, very famous, Young Court, Shakespeare, Our Contemporary. Peter Brook then took him on, and so he gave him worldwide publicity and so on, and he became at one point very famous, very well known. What I'm trying to say is this. If you understand Shakespeare properly, Shakespeare is so modern, so contemporary, that it is mind-blowing and it is mind-stopping. And this is what I'm telling you. When Richard II says, I'm sorry, I'm going to be blunt, when he says, let my mind play the female to my soul, he's just saying, let my mind fuck me. Let me be fucked by my soul. So this is, I mean, you can see that it is absolutely Channel 4 statement. So when you have Johannes Factotum, who is fuck all, you can see that this is what he's saying. And when, for example, they are all the time, whenever you see the soul in Shakespeare, remember, the soul is the highest Christian, most spiritual concept. And here it is in Shakespeare, in the secret language, it is the phallus. It is almost like Shakespeare, to philosophize further, is really doing the fertility cult from very ancient times. It's almost Shakespeare celebrating human fertility through the highest, noblest, most spiritual Christian concept, which he brings it down to the deepest, most profound sexual reality. And you can only understand this through the secret language. When, for example, Hamlet, after the play scene, etc., says, his mother wants to see him, etc., and he says, it's amazing, he says, my rising soul, down, I say, down. You see, therefore, you only understand it as poetry, now you know what it means. Whenever the soul occurs, if anyone of you wants to plagiarize me and write a book on this, I'm sure you will make the bestseller list. The point is that every time this word is used, look around it, above it, below it, etc., there are other sexual images. The rising soul, therefore the erection image. Down, I say, the same thing. And look how Freudian this is. He's so excited by his success that it sexually affects him. So when you have, therefore, Kenneth Branagh saying, oh, my rising soul, down, I say, down. I don't know what he's saying. You tell me what he's saying, I don't know. But this is what Shakespeare is. I will tell you finally one more thing. I know it's getting late, but it is so irresistible. I mean, remember, I'm only telling you because it's so exciting. I don't have to tell you, in fact, I shouldn't, because I know there are some very clever people here and they might plagiarize me, but never mind, I'll risk it. So, King Lear, I'll tell you this. Okay, the next thing is this. This is very, very important. What I say is, therefore, in terms of computer language, if this is a network of neurons, the nerves, these are the nodes. Or in terms of computer language,